We begin with the Blumenthal watch. Everybody wants to know what the Attorney General is thinking about for 2010. Will he run for governor or re-election as Attorney General? This week, Mr. Blumenthal told me he still has not made a decision, and he will appear on this program when he has made one. The former Marine, who turns 63 in just a couple of weeks, has made no secret of his interest in becoming a U.S. Senator. Could an opening for that come sooner than 2012 when Joe Lieberman's term is up? There is talk that perhaps Senator Dodd might not run for re-election next year. In the Hartford Business Journal, Dean Pagani reported the following, quote, "Many are betting Lieberman will not run in 2012, and others think Dodd may be persuaded to retire to preserve his legacy as a senior statesman. It can be reliably reported the conversations are taking place." And with us to talk about all of this is the chairman of the Connecticut Republican Party, Chris Healy, and our political analyst, Doobie McDowell for the Democrats, and Brian Flaherty for the Republicans. We want to point out the chairwoman of the Democratic Party, Nancy DiNardo, is having her re-election at the time of this taping. She'll be joining us in the coming weeks. Folks, great to have you. Thanks so much for being with us. Doobie, the Democrat in the crowd, do you think Senator Dodd will run for re-election next year?
I think he's, at this point, given every indication that he's going to run for re-election. And I think he should, and even though there may have been some dip in the polls recently, I think he would be pretty easily re-elected.
Chris?
I hope he runs for re-election, because maybe we'll get some answers about why he will not show his mortgage documents and how he got a special sweet deal because he's a United States Senator. We can have a debate on where he's been the last 2 years as $1 trillion of value has evaporated on his watch. You know, he's the guy who's supposed to be in charge of the financial institutions and banks. They're the ones that have been supplying his coffers with campaign money. And now that we're all sitting around wondering, well, where's Chris Dodd been for 2 years? And I think that's why his poll numbers are in very dangerous territory. So I really do hope he runs.
And Brian, before we get to you, Doobie, I mean, you know, as a media analyst that you are, what kind of advice is he getting? I mean, if there's nothing in those papers, then why not dump him on Christmas Eve a couple of months ago and just get him out there?
Well, at this moment, I mean, the Senate Ethics Committee, the bipartisan Senate Ethics Committee, is going through all this, and he has said that when they render some sort of a decision, that he'll release everything. I think for the Republican Party in the state, which has very few people, well, there are essentially 13 very high positions in the state, which is our members of Congress, U.S. senators, constitutional officers. There are 13 of them. 2 are held by Republicans, Jody Rell and Mike Fedeli, and so there is a great desire to hope there's some blood in the water, even a hint of blood in the water, and, you know, just go gaga over the story. I don't think there's anything there, but understandably, Chris.
Well, if there's something there, he can just give us the documents and we'll all go home happy.
Brian, is this good for Republicans? I mean, you know, the more we're talking about it, you know, they're talking about it.
What's good for I think is what Doobie talks about, all those Democrats that are lined up like planes trying to get out of LaGuardia on a heavy day, is that some of those people in those positions have been there for over a decade and aren't going anywhere fast. I mean, others have called Chris Dodd an icon in this state, Joe Lieberman. They've both been there a very long time. And now I think you're at the first point where either one of those senators could be going in another place, and there's a whole lot of people in line. And I venture to say that you'll see a lot from the Republicans also in terms of some very strong and viable candidates. You start with Rob Simmons, Jody Rell, and Mike Fedeli, and a lot of other people on there who may not have titles right now, but they're out there running cities and doing the other things you have to do in this state. So,
well, we elected Barack Obama president with 2 years in the United States Senate and 4 in the state Senate. And I think that the lines are going to be very clearly drawn next time around. Who is going to help prevent this country from sinking into bankruptcy? Now, Chris Dodd's had almost 30 years to do that. In the last 4, he's been absent without pay. He's been running for president.
That's inaccurate.
No,
he convened more than 70 hearings
of the
banking committee during the time.
But he didn't listen to anything.
And was sounding many alarms up until that point.
It's an alarm I didn't hear, but most people didn't hear. And, you know, again, the people that he should be watching were these banks and speculators countrywide, all these folks that rolled all these investment vehicles out that had no underlying value. Now, he likes to blame everybody but himself, or even own up to his part in this. You can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm a powerful person caring about you, but when we lose $1 trillion of value of our economy, and he acts as if he wasn't there.
I mean, what do you think about these talks that Dean Pagani reports about? Do you think there are talks to try to get him to retire and go out on top?
You know, I was in Washington a couple of weeks ago before the inaugural, and there's just as many talks that Harry Reid, who's the majority leader of the Senate, becomes an ambassador, and all of a sudden Chris Dodd is among people they're talking about running for leader. Joe Lieberman. There are a bunch of Democrats lined up, almost as many deep as those people Doobie said on the high positions, looking to take a shot at the senator who didn't get the nomination of his party last time out. So either way, you've got a gubernatorial election coming up. You have, I think, for the first time in a long time, the political plates in Connecticut are going to start to move, and the earth's going to shift, and it's going to start pretty soon. The only guy out there, by the way, really fighting for a job in politics, and we'll probably talk about Blumenthal, is Jim Amon, who's banging on doors running for governor.
We'll talk to him later on. About him later on. Let's go back to this speculation that perhaps that he won't run. Richard Blumenthal, of course, who's been flirting with running for governor, hasn't made a decision yet. Do you think maybe he knows something that maybe the Senate seat could be coming up?
Well, he doesn't understand something that you actually have to run and earn these offices. You can't ascend magically with a wave of a wand. And Dick Blumenthal has never taken a risk in his life, aside from beating Jay Levin way back the 19th century when he was Attorney General. And I think if he runs for statewide office, I welcome that, because we can have a real debate over his abysmal record as Attorney General, where he has driven more jobs out of this state through his frivolous lawsuits and his pandering and his grandstanding. Bring it on. What is he going to really talk about? That he's created jobs? That he cares about the economy? That he cares about really working people? A guy who lives in a gated community in Greenwich is all of a sudden going to be man of the people? I can't wait to have that
I understand your frustration, Chris, because it's been impossible for the Republicans to beat Dick Blumenthal, who's been the highest vote getter in the state for many, many cycles, and who is in this enviable position that people are waiting to see what he's going to run for. I mean, personally, I don't think there's any doubt that he is not going to run for governor. Sorry about the double negative.
That's all right.
Dick Blumenthal.
Not going to run for governor.
I will pay for your daughter's first year in college if Dick Blumenthal announces this year he's running for governor.
Wow, I'm sure Kara's watching, writing this right down.
Well, it's many years off, so I have time to save up. But no, seriously. I mean, Dick, as I think my buddies here would agree, has had 4 chances since 1990.
Yeah, right.
If you want to run for governor, you would jump out and do it the way John DeStefano or Dan Malloy.
Or Jim
Obviously, so many people seriously wanted to run for governor, took a chance.
So is he waiting to say no because maybe he knows Chris Dodd may not run for re-election? That seat could be open?
I personally don't think that's why. But if I'm Dick Blumenthal, he gets so much attention when he doesn't come right out and say it. Why not string it
Dennis,
out?
your daughter will be going to college before Dick Blumenthal makes his decision. That's why Doobie made that offer. He does not look like a man that wants to be the governor of the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
And I said before, the one guy who does. And at some point, you got to give some credit to someone who's got the moxie to get out there and bang on doors and ask for the job. And as Chris said, work for the job. Right now, that's Jim Amon. Now, that may change. Dan Malloy in Stanford saying, well, I will, but only if Dick doesn't. You know, the people of the state want someone who's going to work for the job, that act like they want to have the job. And that is not the picture of Dick Blumenthal.
And why do Democrats feel, what I can't figure out is, why do they feel they owe Dick Blumenthal a living here? I mean, there are a lot of Democrats out there that I particularly would like to beat, but they've waited their turn. They've served in office. They've taken risks, and I don't think he's going to be handed this U.S. Senate race on a platter if he wants it. Someone can go up and take him on for it, and I like to think
I think Democrats, at least in the party, feel that Dick Blumenthal has worked hard for a lot of his fellow Democrats.
He sued everybody in the state of Connecticut
incredible
twice.
Popularity. He's, I mean, I make as much fun as anybody does about the waiting for Richard's decision, but
so he wants to be a senator.
And let me just add one other thing.
Who doesn't want to be a senator? But you got to work
Caroline
for it.
Kennedy.
No, that's true.
But where does that opening come from for him? Doobie?
I think it's more likely in 2012.
He'll be on the verge of turning 67 then. I mean, not that that's old, but, it's a while to wait, for that potential.
I don't see that as being a long time to wait. We can get into Lieberman's vulnerability, later in the show or right now. But I think if Dick Blumenthal is looking for an opportunity to go to the U.S. Senate, I think that would be the best thing to set your sights on.
All right, quickly before we go to a commercial break, does Dodd run for re-election?
I think at this point he does.
Yes.
I think he does.
Yes.
And I think Blumenthal goes on the bench.
Good enough.
soon.
All right. We'll be right back in a moment. We'll talk more politics after this commercial timeout.